On June 11, 2022, Amy Eskridge was found dead in Huntsville, Alabama. She was 34 years old. Authorities ruled the cause a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head.
And then, for almost 4 years, nothing. No public investigative report from the Huntsville police, no case file from the Madison County medical examiner, no press conference. The silence held until April 2026.
That is when her name surfaced on a list. 10 other scientists and researchers tied to U.S. aerospace and nuclear programs who had died or vanished. Amy Eskridge became the 11th name.
The kind of list that used to live on message boards. Except this one prompted the FBI to open a formal investigation and the House Oversight Committee to demand briefings from the Pentagon, NASA, the Department of Energy, and the FBI itself.
So let us separate what is documented from what is claimed, because this case has both, in unusual quantity. Start with who she was.
Start with her father. Richard Eskridge was an aerospace engineer at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. Pulsed electromagnetic plasma accelerators, magnetic target fusion, advanced propulsion. His name is on peer-reviewed papers in the NASA Technical Report Server, published through the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics.
Real physics at the boundary between propulsion and energy production. That part is documented. Then, after he retired from NASA, he and his daughter co-founded 2 companies.
Holocron Engineering, a gravity modification firm, and the Institute for Exotic Science, a registered public benefit corporation in Huntsville. Richard was Chief Technology Officer. Amy was CEO and President.
And the Institute had a stated mission that is unusual for this field: to conduct anti-gravity research in the open.
In December 2018, Amy and her father gave a talk to a local space advocacy group called HAL5. The title was A Historical Perspective on Anti-Gravity Technology. The presentation still exists as a downloadable PDF. The materials describe Holocron's focus as quantum computing, gravity modification, and metamaterial science.
The openness was not incidental. She described it as a survival strategy. In a 2020 interview, she said, "If you stick your neck out in public, at least someone notices if your head gets chopped off. If you stick your neck out in private, they will bury you."
She built an organization, in her own words, so that someone would notice if something happened to her.
That is the documented layer. The company registrations, the presentation, the interviews. Now the layer that has no public forensic record behind it.
In the months before her death, Eskridge contacted Frank Milburn, a retired British intelligence officer, through social media. She described a pattern of harassment and physical attacks she believed were meant to stop her research.
On May 13, 2022, less than a month before she died, she sent a text that Milburn later made public. "If you see any report that I killed myself, I most definitely did not. If you see any report that I overdosed, I most definitely did not."
She also said she had been struck by what she believed was a directed energy weapon. She shared photographs of burns on her hands, feet, neck, and back. In another text, she wrote that a colleague with weapons expertise identified the device as an RF K-band emitter run by 5 car batteries from inside an SUV.
And here's where the tiering matters. Those are extraordinary claims. No independent forensic analysis of the burns has entered the public record. No pathologist has publicly corroborated microwave-consistent tissue damage. The colleague she named has not been identified.
Milburn says he spoke with her about 4 hours before her death and noticed nothing unusual. His conclusion that she was murdered is his assessment. It is not a verified finding.
And the family does not share it. Richard Eskridge told News Nation he does not believe his daughter's death was suspicious. "Scientists die also, just like other people," he said.
Which is the part most coverage skips. The person who knew her best, and who has every reason to want answers, does not see a conspiracy.
A former FBI special agent in charge, Andrew Black, framed the tension precisely. The fact that her parents may feel she did commit suicide does not mean the other things she reported were not true.
Both things can sit on the table at once. That is the discipline here.
There is also a documented Huntsville backdrop that predates her. Ning Lee, a physicist at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, published papers in the early 1990s on gravity and superconductivity. NASA Marshall funded the work. Popular Mechanics ran a feature.
In 1999, she left the university and founded a company called Antigravity. It received a Defense Department grant of just under $450,000 in 2001. The grant period ended in 2002 with no public results. According to her son, she then obtained a top-secret clearance and stopped publishing.
She was struck by a car on the Huntsville campus in 2014, suffered permanent brain damage, and died in 2021. That is documented. What sits in the claimed tier is the interpretation.
Journalist Ross Coulthart said in 2023 that people involved in high-level physics in Huntsville had disappeared, and that sources described both an active anti-gravity program and an aggressive foreign counterintelligence operation in the area. Those claims are unverified, but they place Eskridge's fears in a specific context.
The reason any of this reached Congress is a single document. In November 2024, journalist Michael Schellenberger submitted written testimony to the House Oversight Committee during its hearing on unidentified anomalous phenomena.
The same hearing where David Grush testified under oath. Schellenberger's submission included Milburn's allegation that Eskridge was murdered by a private aerospace company. That allegation is now part of the congressional record.
Congressman Eric Burleson has stated there is significant evidence she was targeted by a directed energy weapon. In April 2026, the Oversight Committee sent letters to the FBI, the Defense Department, the Energy Department, and NASA, warning the deaths might represent a grave threat to national security.
The FBI has said it is spearheading the effort. The president called it pretty serious stuff, and Amy Eskridge sits at the center of it, not because her case is the most recent, but because she left a trail. Texts, presentations, public appearances.
Then there is the rest of the list, and this is where a single narrative starts to strain. The 11 cases vary enormously.
2 scientists were shot in their homes. Nuno Loureiro, who directed MIT's Plasma and Fusion Center, and Carl Grillmeyer, a Caltech astrophysicist. In both cases, authorities identified a gunman with no apparent connection to the victim's research.
3 people connected to Los Alamos and a Kansas City security campus disappeared in New Mexico in the summer of 2025. A retired Air Force Major General, William McCasland, vanished from his Albuquerque home in February 2026 and is still missing.
Monica Reza, who directed a materials group at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and held patents on a nickel superalloy used in spacecraft and weapons, disappeared while hiking in California. The Oversight Committee noted that she and McCasland had worked together on an Air Force materials program in the early 2000s.
And then cases that cut the other way. One NASA scientist's daughter told CNN her father had medical problems and that there was no logic that would tie him to a federal investigation. A pharmaceutical researcher went missing and was later found in a lake, with no foul play suspected.
2 cases have no public cause of death at all, which means they cannot be read in either direction.
So what does the pattern show? Chairman James Comer said it was unlikely to be coincidence. FBI Director Kash Patel said the Bureau would look for connections to classified access and foreign actors.
But the structure of the foreign adversary theory has a problem worth naming. If a state actor were collecting intelligence, killing or disappearing the sources is a catastrophic failure, not tradecraft. Intelligence services recruit assets. They do not usually eliminate them.
And the base rate is the question no one has answered with numbers. Thousands of scientists work at these facilities. Some will die or go missing in any given period. Whether this specific rate exceeds expectation is unresolved.
NASA's own statement was that nothing related to NASA indicates a national security threat. The Defense Department said it was not independently investigating the missing persons, which itself raises a coordination question.
So where does that leave Amy Eskridge? The verifiable record is narrow. Her father's NASA career, her companies, the HAL 5 presentation, her obituary, her explicit timestamp statements predicting the circumstances of her own death.
And what is unverified is nearly everything that would turn this from a tragedy into a case. The weapon, the burns, the colleague, and whether the official cause of death is accurate.
The absence of a public investigative report is not evidence of a cover-up. It is an absence. But it is an absence in a case where the deceased left instructions for how to read her death.
The Institute's website went offline after she died. Holocron was formally dissolved at the end of 2022. The research she meant to publish never appeared.
She built a company to be sane, so that someone would notice. The open question is not whether she was right about who was after her. It is why, 4 years later, the people with the case file still have not shown their work.
11 names, multiple agencies, 1 investigation, and so far, no answers.